Hi guys, it's David here from Right On Resources, and this video is going to have a look at functional skills. Specifically, this video is going to look at practicing writing skills for all levels of the functional skills course. So this is going to look at the basic kind of scenario that you're going to be faced with when you're faced with written tasks. I'm going to be doing this along the theme of Christmas as we're getting very close to that time now. The lesson also has a link at the bottom to the full lesson, which you can find on our test page. Just click the link and you'll be able to find the reading element to go along with this as well. The first thing I'd like you to do is to have a look at the adjectives on the left hand side and try to match them to the correct definitions on the other side. The first thing you need to know is what is an adjective. So an adjective, these are words that describe a noun. So they're potentially the most important words that you have in the sentence because it helps to communicate and reveal to the reader how you feel about a certain thing or topic or even a person. So the first one, exciting. Second one is miraculous. The third one is exhausting. And the fourth one is abysmal. So if you'd like to pause the video here and spend a bit more time trying to work out what the definitions are, please feel free to do so. I'm now going to go ahead and reveal the correct answers. So for the first one, exciting, the definition is causing great enthusiasm and eagerness. Miraculous, of the nature of a miracle or having the power to work miracles. Number 3, exhausting, make one feel tired or feeling like whatever you're doing is very, very tiring. Normally it's the kind of adjective we associate with work or very long days or something like that. And the final one, abysmal. This is a little bit of an unusual adjective. We don't really see it except for really extreme cases. So again, the definition is extremely bad when something is appalling. So this is when something is really the worst kind of situation you can imagine. Now we're going to think about interesting adjectives. So the adjectives that are used in writing affect how well we communicate, and we can see that now when we look at these two examples. As we go through them, I'd like you to think about how can we use interesting adjectives to improve our writing. So the first example, you can see there that the person who's going to express his point of view is clearly not very happy. So this is what he says. I don't like Christmas. Every year is bad. Why can't we just get rid of it? It's bad and really hard to get everything on time. The second one is going to have a slightly different view. You can see there from the little man that's just popped up that's going to be a lot happier. So Christmas is a really good thing. I really like presents because they will make me feel good. Celebrating with a happy family all together is nice. So if you have a look through each of those examples and actually have a look at the adjectives that are used, even though I said them with a little bit of enthusiasm, it didn't really come across that well if you just read it by yourself. So I don't like Christmas. Every year is bad. Bad is quite a low level adjective, doesn't really help us to convey the full extent of the person's feelings. Why can't we just get rid of it? It's bad. Again, repeat that same word, that same adjective. So it's not just about the fact that this person hasn't used a very interesting adjective, they've also repeated the same one. It doesn't really give us anything else to go on. It doesn't give us any extra information on really what this person's feeling or how they really relate to this time of year. And really hard to get everything on time. Again, say it's really hard. That's a fairly low level adjective. Doesn't really express the full extent of how they feel about Christmas. The next one then. Christmas is a really good thing. Again, is good a good enough adjective? Not really, you know. Does it really express how people feel at Christmas? Think about the joy. Think about how happy this person looks on that image. Do they feel good? Or is there a better adjective you could use to fully express how they're feeling at that point? I really like presents because they make me feel good. So they've done essentially the same thing as the other example. So the other one's repeated the word bad and this one has repeated the word good. Both responses, because the adjectives are fairly low level, are going to sound quite immature, potentially even quite juvenile or babyish, because they haven't used the appropriate adjectives. Celebrating with a happy family all together is nice. Again, think about that. We don't get enough time generally to see all of our family, and the best word that this person can use to describe that moment of getting all that quality time with their family is nice. So think, just for a moment, how can we use interesting adjectives to improve our writing? If you'd like to pause the video here and actually focus on it yourself and see the kind of words that you could come up with, then please feel free to do so. And we're going to go ahead and look at an improved response in a moment. Now let's take a look at what these responses look like now that we can change around the adjectives. So the first one says, I don't like Christmas. Every year it's just abysmal. Why can't we just get rid of it? It's bad and really exhausting trying to get everything on time. So we can see there that they have changed some of the adjectives. Now it's still said that it doesn't like Christmas, so it's just very clearly expressing their point of view. It says every year is just abysmal. Again, that was one of the key words that we were focusing on in the previous task. We know that if they're saying it's really abysmal, they're essentially saying it's the worst thing imaginable, right? So it's a really effective adjective here to help express how they're feeling. Why can't we get rid of it? It's bad and really exhausting trying to get everything on time. So it's still using the word bad. It isn't the best adjective to use, but at least it's not repeating it. So we can kind of forgive them for that. And really exhausting. So exhausting is a really effective word here. It's not just telling me they don't like Christmas, but it's being a little bit more specific and telling me the thing it doesn't like is the way that it feels in terms of making them tired, and they're having to run around and deal with all that anxiety and pressure that a lot of people have to cope with during Christmas time. Now we're going to have a look at the second example. So it says, Christmas is a really miraculous thing. So again, it's used the word miraculous, which we know from our previous task means that it's saying that Christmas is essentially a miracle, right? Something that is really important to them and something that is very valuable to them as well. I really like presents because they make me feel amazing. So think about what a better word that is. Amazing really helps to quantify and tell us the level of joy this person is feeling at receiving a gift. Celebrating with a happy family all together is wonderful. And this isn't one that we looked at in the definitions, but you can see there that it helps to express the joy and happiness that they're feeling as they're spending it with their loved ones during Christmas. If you'd like to pause the video now, have a look over the examples. It might be worthwhile having a think and seeing what adjectives would you use yourself, whether you change the responses anyway. If you can, try and stretch and challenge yourself and write a few sentences expressing your own view on Christmas. Try to use interesting adjectives. That's a really important thing to focus on in terms of actually being able to express your own point of view and your feelings to the reader or the audience. Now we're going to move on and have a look at the different types of writing you might be asked to produce. So when it comes to your writing assessment, there's a vast variety of different forms of writing you're going to be expected to know. You will, however, only get two that come up. So you'll have two different questions to focus on in your writing assessment. And we're going to focus first of all on a blog. Now the reason why we're focusing on a blog at the moment is because blogs are something that are getting more and more popular. If you're not sure what we mean by a blog is a discussion or information website published on the World Wide Web, consisting of discrete, often informal diary-style text entries. So essentially, all a blog is a web page where any individual can set it up and they can start writing their own thoughts and feelings on any given topic. It's very, very similar to a diary, and that's where you get this idea of it being quite an informal style. So with that in mind, it's going to use things like slang words. It may not necessarily use particularly correct English, and it's going to be more about expressing the person's point of view rather than necessarily always towards persuading people to listen or to do as they say. A good thing to think about is what other forms of writing might this be similar to, and as you can see there in the definition of what a blog is, you can already see that it is very similar to a diary. We also could say that it's quite similar to an informal letter or an informal email, because a lot of the language used is going to be very similar. The next one we're going to have a look at is just letter writing. Now the reason why we're going to look at this one is because it can cause a few problems for people when they come into the exam, because they get a little bit confused about how to lay it out. So when you come to letter writing, it's important to know that letter writing is the exchange of written or printed messages. Distinctions are commonly drawn between personal letters sent between family members, friends or acquaintances, so again we mean like informal letters, and business letters, which will be formal, so exchanges with businesses or government organisations. So apart from the fact that this is really important towards your course and progressing in functional skills, is also something that you're likely going to have to do in your day-to-day lives. A lot of the time we do have to write these kind of letters or have kind of grievances that we need to air with organisations and businesses. Again, it's important to think about what other forms of writing might this be similar to. A letter can be quite difficult to do because of how you set it out, but we're going to go through the actual setting up of it in the next slide. So now we're going to see a template. All I want you to do is just to familiarise yourself with it and make sure you're happy with how you set out a letter. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that on the right hand side you've got the writer's address, which again means yours as well. There's a few things that you need to be aware of for this, like you need to make sure that things like your postcode, your town, your street are all using capital letters, and make sure that they're spelled correctly as well. I would advise that you don't use your own personal information, just so that you are protected as well. The next thing is the date directly under this, and then we've got the recipient's details. So when we say the recipient's details, we mean who is it that you're sending it to. Okay, so that's the kind of standard way that you'd be expected to set out a letter. Next part. Now when we move on to look at the main body of your writing, these are some of the organisational features you will need to use. So first thing, you need to start off your letter with the word dear. So we use this when we know the person's name. If you don't know the person's name, if it's a formal letter, of course you'll send it with dear sir or madam. When you're laying out your writing, your first paragraph needs to go underneath where the box would end after dear. Okay, so it's a little bit of an indent, you leave a bit of a space, and then you can go on and explain the purpose of your writing. So this is essentially like your introduction to your writing. And the next one, 3 main paragraphs, 1 per point. Okay, so just keep 1 clear point per paragraph so that it sounds nice and straightforward and it doesn't get confusing for the reader. If you'd like to look at the layout features or how to actually write a letter in more depth, then please do check out our other videos. We do have a fantastic one on letter writing as well, which does go into this in a lot more detail as well. Look at the exam style questions below and pick one to focus your writing on. So the first one would be, write a blog to express your own thoughts and feelings on the subject of Christmas. Your other option could be, write a letter to a friend advising them on how to make the most out of their Christmas this year. If you're not too sure about how to start these, then we will have a look at some examples on the next slide as well. Look at the example below to help begin your response. So hopefully you're able to notice that we've got the web address at the start of the page, and this is going to be our example of a typical blog. So if you look very closely there, you can see it also has the website in there, www.dannysdailylife.com/Christmas time. Now you wouldn't be expected necessarily to write in a full address. I've just done it there to show you the typical kind of layout that you might face. Okay, so you might get some images on there and you might get like a little bit of a caption as well next to the pictures, but generally it's going to be all about expressing their thoughts on this topic. So it says, Christmas is an amazing time of year. I for one can't wait to start digging out all of my old decorations and covering my house in festive cheer. I love all of it, well almost all of it. I love the music, the decorations, and let's not forget all of the fantastic food and prezzies. But one thing that really puts a lump of coal in my stocking is the cost. It is so expensive. I mean, do we really need to spend so much? Tell me I'm not the only one who feels this way. Hashtag Christmas expense. Hashtag money matters. So this is also something that you might encounter when you're looking at a blog. Using hashtags, it's normally what they use when they're on a website to actually link it to key things when people search in a website. Again, this wouldn't necessarily be something you'd be expected to write in your blog, but it just is a helpful thing to show the examiner that you understand the typical thing that you might get in a blog. Now we're going to move on and look at an example for a letter. Look at the example below. It should help you to start your own response. So you can see there, because it's going to be an informal letter, I know the person's name, so I'm starting my letter, Dear Sam. I have it very clearly indented, and my writing starts just beneath the comma, just after saying Dear Sam. So it says, Dear Sam, I hope that you and the family are all doing okay. I can't wait to see you all in the new year. I hope you all have had the very best Christmas possible, and as someone who has a young family too, I think I could give you some ideas to help make the most out of this special time. Christmas is about spending time with the people you care about the most, so don't go overboard with the presents. Spending time with you will be the best thing you can give your children. We work so hard all year long that you need to unwind, relax, and put your work aside and make the most out of the time you have with your family. So hopefully we're able to notice there are a few key differences between the previous example. Obviously, if it was a letter, we'd have it laid out a little bit differently. We'd make sure we have the addresses on the appropriate sides and everything else like that. But also the tone of the writing has changed a lot. This is because the previous task, when we actually looked at the two options to go for, was telling you to advise them. So advise them is kind of like gently nudging them towards your point of view. And we do have a few examples of that in the text. If you'd like to pause this or go through it in your own leisure, use any of these examples to start your own writing, please feel free to do so. If you need any additional support or help, then new videos will be added every single week. Alternatively, you can leave us a comment, like and subscribe, and I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. If you still can't find what you're looking for on our channel, then please do check out our partner channel, Bookworm Teaching, for more lessons and guidance on all things English. If you enjoyed this mini video, then please do check out the rest of the lesson that can be found on the link below on our test channel page. Thanks guys, and all the best with your work in Functional Skills English.